Kelvar's razor-sharp claws clicked rhythmically across the cold metal floor as he paced the command deck, his heavy footsteps echoing through the tense silence. The junior officers kept their eyes fixed on their stations, mandibles clenched tight, not daring to even glance up at their agitated commander. They could sense Kelvar's simmering anger in the subtle flickering of his dorsal spines and the wafting scent of his aggression pheromones. The Terran scout ship still lingered just across the border of Lixian space, a silent but blistering provocation. For 2 tense cycles it had hovered there, audaciously testing the limits of the post-invasion accords. Kelvar came to an abrupt halt behind his trusted lieutenant Rax Nor. "Report," he rasped, gravelly voice rumbling from deep within his barrel-like chest. Raxnor's own spines quivered involuntarily at the commanding tone. No change, sir," Raxnor stammered, glancing at the sensor readout with orange eyes wide. The Terran vessel remained stationary at the border demarcation point. Without warning, Kelvar slammed a clenched fist down on the console in front of Raxnor, fracturing the smooth metal surface and making the junior officer jump. Kelvar leaned in close, black pupils narrowed to predatory slits within his piercing yellow eyes. His hot breath whistled through razor fangs as he spoke. "Even after we lost half our invasion fleet to their infernal particle weapons and quantum disruptors, after millions of our bravest warriors burned in the void, the humans still taunt us with such brazen moves." Raxnor's spines flicked nervously as he resisted the instinct to lower his gaze in submission. "I'm sure High Command must have an explanation for this apparent provocation, sir. The treaty negotiations... The negotiations are a farce," Kelvar roared, spittle flying from his maw. "The Terrans grow bold while High Command debases all Lixians with their cowardly concessions." He turned from the console and began pacing again, his mind racing. The scout ship's presence here now was no coincidence. It had to be a test of their resolve, perhaps the prelude to another devastating attack. Kelvar had urged the Admiralty to prepare for this, to position their fleets in secret muster points near the border, but they had dismissed his concerns, insisting the humans would honor the treaty as long as the Lixians showed restraint and good faith. Fools. As if good faith mattered to a race as ruthless as the Terrans. Kelvar understood them in a way his superiors did not. He had seen the wreckage of the once mighty invasion armada drifting back to Lixian space after the battle over Earth. He had watched in horror as their proudest warships simply evaporated under the onslaught of human particle beams, and he had barely survived the terror weapon that ripped a dreadnought's gravity core into a savage singularity, spaghettifying hundreds of Lixians in an instant. No, Kelvar thought bitterly as he paced. High Command could delude themselves all they wanted, but the humans had made their true nature abundantly clear. Given the slightest pretext, they would unleash their nightmarish arsenal and reduce the Lixian people to ashes, as they nearly had during the failed invasion. Kelvar came to a stop once more before Rax Nor, placing a clawed hand firmly on the officer's shoulder this time. "You know as well as I do what those humans are truly capable of, Lieutenant, and you know what fate awaits us all if we give them an excuse to unleash that power again." Raxnor met Kelvar's intense gaze and nodded slowly. "I understand completely, Commander. We cannot allow another catastrophe like the attempted invasion of Earth. Never again. Never again," Kelvar agreed. Straightening, he turned and resumed his tireless pacing, determined to prepare his ship for whatever the Terran scout's presence portended. High Command may have paid lip service to peace to placate the humans, but here, on the frontier, Kelvar knew the fragile ceasefire could shatter at any moment. When that time came, he swore the Lixians would respond with the full fury and force of their ancient warrior heritage. This time, they would show no mercy against the merciless humans. Kelvar paced relentlessly in his sparse, private quarters, razor claws clicking in an anxious rhythm across the cold metal floor. Sleep continued to elude him despite the late hour and dimmed lights. His mind seethed with thoughts of the silent Terran scout ship, still lingering like a phantom at the border. 2 full cycles had passed since its arrival, and still High Command insisted on following diplomatic protocols. They told Kelvar to maintain position and make no provocative actions, as if meekly complying would keep the humans at bay. Fools. All of them, Kelvar thought bitterly. He knew this situation required action, not more of the same pathetic concessions that had led to the failed invasion of Earth in the first place. No, the humans were testing Lixian resolve once more, probing for any signs of weakness or submission before their next onslaught. Well, Kelvar would give them neither. He would face the humans as a true Lixian warrior with cunning, strength, and ruthlessness to match their own. A sudden chime at his door interrupted Kelvar's brooding. "Enter," he growled, already knowing the report he was about to receive. Raxnor stepped inside, snapping to attention, but clearly anxiety-ridden, based on the sour tinge in his scent. "Apologies for the disturbance at this hour, Commander, but we have received an urgent communique from High Command regarding the Terran scout vessel." Kelvar flexed his claws involuntarily. "And? What excuses have those cowards conjured up now?" Raxnor hesitated, then spoke the words Kelvar dreaded hearing. "High Command has ordered us not to engage the Terran ship under any circumstances. They believe this is a test of our resolve as agreed in the peace accords." Kelvar snarled in outrage, spines flaring and pupils narrowing to menacing black slits. He struck a console with his fist, fracturing the smooth metal surface. "The arrogance! The humans tease us from our own border, and High Command responds with more pathetic appeasement." He whirled and advanced on Raxnor, who stood his ground. "Tell me, Lieutenant, what do you think the humans are planning while High Command forces our ships to sit idle and compliant?" Raxnor's expression hardened. "Nothing good, sir. The crew's morale is wavering with this restraint. We wish to take action, not keep bowing to Terran aggression." Kelvar placed a clawed hand firmly on Raxnor's shoulder. "And what of your own position, Lieutenant? Where does your loyalty truly lie?" Raxnor drew himself up fully. "With you, Commander, and the brave crew of this ship, my loyalty is not to cowards who would see us shackled and docile before our enemy." A grim smile pulled at Kelvar's tusked maw. "Good. Ready the ship for combat maneuvers and muster a squadron of our fastest stingers. The Terrans want a response? Oh, we'll give them a proper Lixian response." Raxnor thumped a clenched fist to his chest. "At once, Commander. By the blood, we will remind the humans why they should fear Lixian vengeance." He turned sharply and left Kelvar alone again in the stark quarters. But now, Kelvar no longer paced in aimless frustration. The scout's brazen presence had finally shattered the weak illusion of peace. Now, the human-Lixian war would resume in full fury, and this time only one species would be left standing when the flames burned out. Kelvar vowed to fight to his last bitter breath to ensure that species was Lixian. And after the humans' abominable weapons were done, annihilating High Command for their compliance and weakness, he would lead his people anew from the ashes. Kelvar stood rigid on the blackened command deck, yellow eyes fixed on the main view screen. The sleek Terran cruisers hung before them, arrayed like fanged predators surrounding wounded prey. His spike frills twitched as his nostrils flared. The faint but distinct odor of scorched Lixian flesh still lingered in the air. "Report!" Kelvar rasped, though he already knew the grim outcome of the battle. His first officer, Raxnor, stepped forward, fresh plasma burns marring his uniform. "We've lost over half our stingers, Commander. The Terran pulse lasers cut them down before they could get in range. Our cruisers are severely damaged across the bow. He hesitated. We're crippled, sir. Kelvar flexed his claws. Crippled, but still breathing, which is more than we'll be if the humans finish us off. He turned to Raxnor. Prepare the crews for boarding action. Seal all compartments. Raxnor's spines flared in alarm. Sir, with respect, if the humans board us in force, we will make them pay for every claw's length in Lixian blood, Kelvar snarled. I'll die with fang and claw bared before surrendering this ship. Raxnor thumped a fist to his chest. By the blood, we'll fight beside you, Commander, until the last claw stops twitching. The deck rumbled underfoot as the Terran cruisers began bombarding their flank. Klaxons blared while the acrid smoke of electrical fires filled the air. The bitter tang of Lixian blood joined the smoke's odor. How? Kelvar rasped, more to himself than his crew. How did the humans know we'd strike? Raxnor's expression was grave. I don't know, sir, but they were waiting in ambush, as if they knew our exact plan to violate High Command's orders. Kelvar's eyes widened as stark realization dawned. No, no! He slammed a fist into the bulkhead, denting the metal. High Command betrayed us. They transmitted our battle plan to the humans. His outrage shifted to resignation as the view screen showed a Terran boarding craft fast approaching. So this was how the great Lixian warrior Kelvar would meet his end, martyred by his own leaders and butchered by the ruthless humans. A chilling calm settled over him. Raxnor, have the crew arm themselves for close-quarters combat. When the humans breach our hull, promise me you will make them pay in rivers of their own blood. Raxnor thumped his chest again in salute. By my life's blood, they will drown in their own gore for every Lixian they cut down. We will show them fury such as, Commander, the humans are hailing us, the comm officer yelled over the chaos. Kelvar froze. Open the channel. A human face appeared on the view screen. Lixian vessel. This is Commander Lewis of the United Terran Peacekeeping Force. Power down your weapons and engines. We have no hostile intent if you comply with our boarding team. Rage boiled in Kelvar's chest. You already slaughtered my fighter squadron. We will not surrender this ship without drowning your boarding parties in blood first. The human's face was infuriatingly calm. There's been a terrible misunderstanding. We had no hostile intent until you violated treaty boundaries. Power down and let us inspect your ship. No more blood needs to be shed today. Kelvar trembled with impotent fury as he realized any resistance would be suicidal. The humans had outmaneuvered him utterly. You win this round, human, Kelvar snarled, but this is far from over. He turned to a battered and bleeding Raxnor. All around the bridge, the last weary Lixian survivors lowered their weapons in grim defeat. The pungent odor of cauterized flesh and ozone still lingered in the air as Kelvar stepped through the crackling hole cut into the bridge doors by Terran plasma torches. He kept his spines flattened and arms spread to show no hostile intent as the heavily armed soldiers filtered onto his command deck. Kelvar glowered as a tall human with close-cropped hair approached, undoubtedly the Commander Lewis who had forced their surrender. The man showed no caution, meeting Kelvar's venomous stare with an infuriating air of calm authority. Commander Kelvar, I presume? Lewis asked in lightly accented Lixian. I am Commander Armand Lewis of the United Terran Peacekeeping Force. Are all your crew accounted for? Kelvar kept his tone neutral. My first officer is accounting for our losses now. You took us by surprise, human. Well done. Not many can boast of defeating the great warrior Kelvar. Lewis raised an eyebrow. This wasn't meant to be a battle at all until you violated treaty space with an armed frigate squadron. Kelvar bristled but said nothing as Lewis glanced around the ravaged bridge. "Why did you directly contravene High Command's orders? This reckless act seems out of character, Commander." Kelvar leaned in, lowering his voice so only Lewis could hear his gravelly words. "Because, unlike you humans, we Lixians understand the need to take bold action when threatened, instead of cowering behind treaties and appeasement." Lewis's expression remained infuriatingly unmoved. "Is that why your unprovoked invasion of Earth cost so many Lixian lives?" Rage boiled in Kelvar's veins, but he kept it contained. "I invaded nothing. I simply know the terrible weapons your kind wields, human, and I know you will use any pretense to unleash them against us once more." "You have nothing to fear if you honor the treaty as we have," Lewis said calmly, "though others in your high command seem to believe as you do that peace is merely an excuse for human aggression." Kelvar froze. "What do you mean, human?" Lewis met his gaze levelly. "Come now, Commander. Did you really think we didn't know you were encouraged to violate the border by elements of your own high command? Hardliners who want to restart the war?" Shock rooted Kelvar in place. The realization of how thoroughly the humans had infiltrated Lixian command shook him to his core. A terrible certainty grew in his gut. You knew everything," he rasped. "Our battle plans, our ion cannon specs, everything. High Command betrayed us." Kelvar felt the deck tilt beneath him. "But how?" Lewis placed a steadying hand on his barrel-like chest. "We intercepted coded communiques between your ship and certain members of High Command. Ones we discovered were trying to provoke us into breaking the ceasefire so they could rally the Lixian people for war." Kelvar shook his great head angrily. "Lies! Human deceit!" But the awful truth sunk deeper by the moment. His own leaders had manipulated and sacrificed him, like a game piece. Lewis's expression was grave. "I'm sorry, Commander Kelvar. I know this is difficult to process, but you have a choice now. Help us expose those who orchestrated this or become their scapegoat for renewing a pointless war." Raxnor stepped up to Kelvar's side, fresh wounds showing his loyalty to the last. Kelvar realized he could not let his friend suffer for his own blindness. With deep resignation, Kelvar extended his clawed hand to the human. "Commander Lewis, for the sake of the brave Lixians who fought by my side, I accept your offer." Lewis grasped his scaly hand in a firm shake. "You've made the right decision for your people's future, Commander. This crew's courage deserves peace, not more senseless bloodshed." Kelvar gave a solemn nod. With his ship crippled and honor-stained, he had no choice but to place his trust in this human who had been an enemy just hours before. Perhaps only together could their peoples overcome the warmongers determined to keep them eternally at each other's throats.